Hey guys, in this video I wanted to go over how I went about looking for an apartment in Colorado Springs, what my priorities were, and how I was able to get one with no credit. Basically it's frozen credit. My credit isn't officially frozen, but I haven't used credit in so long. So I'll go over that whole process with you. Currently, I'm still deployed, was notified of an assignment, so I had to look for an apartment because I'll be moving this summer. So really short turnaround. So just to keep up with the move and everything, I went ahead and looked for an apartment while I'm still deployed. I secured the apartment I wanted, and looking for an apartment when you're across the globe can be a little stressful. So some nights I had to stay late so I could make the calls I needed to make to talk to the people and get more information, you know. So some of the priorities I had when I was looking for my apartment were, so number one was safety, and then I also needed to make sure my dog, they were pet friendly, so I had to make sure Titan was also able to be with me. I made a checklist. I don't know if you can see that. Is it like this? Okay. So some of the other priorities I had were like, I wanted it to be close to work. I needed the apartment to have a washer and dryer because I don't want to go somewhere in town to wash clothes and stuff. So washer and dryer in the unit was really important to me. I also wanted to have a place that had a garage or a detached garage of some kind, a dog park close by for Titan, things like that. I've been in the Air Force for over 13 years, so I've moved a time or two, you know what I mean? So I'm familiar with like the basics. Some of the basics were all the apartment places I lived, with the exception of Idaho, required me to have renter's insurance, which is really cheap. I think it was like 10 or 20 bucks a month when I lived in Tampa. I moved about 6 or 7 times while I lived in Tampa. I moved a lot because of deployments and relationships and change in rank and all that kind of stuff. So I was familiar, but I had credit. I had established credit, so it was really quick. I could get an apartment like within an hour, you know. In Tampa, I knew the perfect location and rent price for Tampa, so it was really quick for me if I needed to get an apartment there because they knew me because I had been there for so long. So I'd deploy, come back, move in with a friend, come back. So I had a history with them, but also I had a credit history so they could check that. And with every apartment complex, there, you know, the security deposit fee, the pet fee. But what's new in Colorado is that now I have to pay rent for Titan, basically. It ranged from like 30 to 40 bucks a month in every place I looked at in Colorado Springs. I looked for an apartment because I just feel safer in an apartment rather than a house. And the Air Force is giving me a housing allowance, about $1,700. So I wanted to keep my monthly rent under that because in addition to paying the actual rent, I've got to pay trash fee, pest control fee, you know, internet, utilities, things like that, water, sewage. So I have to pay all that stuff plus rent. And I don't want y'all to think that my housing allowance is added onto like someone's normal salary. So that's included in an average annual salary. And we pay taxes too. Military people pay taxes. I'm not paying taxes now because I'm deployed, but yeah, we pay taxes too. And the housing allowance isn't added on to an average salary amount, in my opinion. Colorado Springs is really pretty and really expensive to live. So I looked around for a couple weeks for an apartment. I'm not gonna tell y'all where I ended up living. I'm not gonna tell the internet that, but I thought about for maybe 6 hours, I considered buying a house, but then I thought about my Dave Ramsey thoughts. I thought, like, what would Dave Ramsey do? And then what should I do? What would I wanna do? So I am still upgrading the house in Alabama. It's nearly 100 years old, so I'm working on fortifying that, you know, to last even longer. So I don't want to go into buying another house that I have to be responsible for. And I'm only gonna be in Colorado hopefully just 2 years or less, and then I can move on. I'm just gonna do my time and move on. Enjoy Colorado, it's beautiful. So I thought about buying a house for 6 hours, like I mentioned, and I started looking at the houses, and I have never bought a house. I don't know anything about buying a house. The house I oh, now my mom gave it to me and my sisters. So yeah, I've never gone through the process of buying a home. But I started looking at the houses, and there was some kind of, it was like realtor.com or something like that. I can't remember the website, but it gave an estimate of how much the monthly mortgage price would be. And what I was comfortable with was not an option. All the safe looking houses, because when I was looking at these houses and the apartments, I'm across the globe. So what I would do is go on Google Maps and go on the street view and look at everything on the street view, as well as the pictures. And I looked at the surrounding area. I'll go into this more in a second, but none of the houses looked like what I would want to live in or fix up. So not even a fixer-upper. So I just didn't see anything that I was like, yes, I could see myself living here and owning it. No, thank you. No. So then I went back to reconsidering, okay, what about if I rented a house to live in? So I started looking at that, and all of the nice looking houses in like a nice neighborhood close to my job, they were really expensive, and they're like 4 and 5 bedroom houses. I couldn't find a small nice house close to my job. So, I don't want to be paying extra for space that I don't need, right? So then I was like, okay, back to apartment searching. So when I was looking for apartments and the houses momentarily too, I would go on Google Maps. Some of the places I was looking at had a street view option when you scroll through the pictures, but some of them didn't. So I would put in the address and go to the street view and look at it that way, because I want to know where this is at. I want to know what it looks like, and I would zoom out and I would see what is around this place. One of the apartments I was really close to getting because it had an attached garage, which is really rare apparently. So first floor attached garage under my housing allowance. So I was like, okay. So I thought about it, and I was like, what can I do to make sure I don't regret this decision? So I went on Google Maps and I zoomed out and I saw, oh, it's not in like a gated community. It's like in the middle of town. That could be kind of cool, but I'm on the first floor. So then I zoomed out a little bit more and I saw it was behind a mall. And I was like, oh, PetSmart is like right there. I could just walk over to PetSmart with Titan. Then I was like, oh, it's behind a mall. I don't know, is that safe? So then I zoomed out a little bit more and I saw it was behind a high school. And I was like, once I saw this apartment complex was behind a mall and a high school, I zoomed out a little bit further and I saw it was also behind, like adjacent kind of to a police station. So not a jail, but just like the police station-y part. So I was like, man, mall, high school, police station. I don't know if I want to be living there. So then I just started reading the reviews. The reviews talked about people breaking into cars and the homeless camp out there. They called it camp out. The homeless getting into the cars and stuff. So then I was like, okay, this place ain't for me. So then I started looking again. When I was looking for apartments, I was also thinking about what Titan would have to look at all day while I was at work. Some of the apartment places, the balconies would just be kind of like a half wall, but some of them would be like a fence so he could see into the parking lot and stuff. So he wouldn't just, so he'd have stuff to look at while I'm gone basically. A lot of them had patios with, the glass sliding door or something, and then there was a patio, and then the patio had a railing. So Titan loves windows, so I wanted to make sure he had something to look at. A lot of these places also had another fee where you had to pay like a community area living fee. So for the electricity and the public restrooms and stuff, and maybe use of their little kitchens and stuff they have in the common area. Man, these people are bougie up in Colorado Springs. I also wanted to get an apartment on the first floor, and I want an apartment on the first floor just so it would be easy for Titan to go in and out. It would just be easier for Titan to not have to go up and down a bunch of stairs. So at the end of the day, I was able to find an apartment under my BAH, and it has a dog park on the property. It's close to work. It's on the first floor. It has a balcony where Titan can look out of. It doesn't have a garage attached. They have detached garages for like $130 a month or something like that. So I'll think about it once I get there and check them out and see how close I could get in a garage to the apartment. There's free internet in the common areas of this place, so that's nice. And then of course with every place there's an application fee and a processing fee and a security deposit and a deposit for Titan. So when it came to applying for this apartment, I reached out to them and I did the application through their website. They reached out to me. I told them the exact apartment I wanted to apply for. And it turns out that for some places, dogs can only stay on the first level. So thankfully, I was able to find one on the first level that I liked. So with the application and military members, they get a copy of our paycheck. So they had 2 previous paychecks of mine, so they know how much I make. They wanted photos of Titan and government photo ID, so all that was normal. But then they told me that they had to do a manual underride or something, manual override, underride, one of the rides. So it didn't even hit me until they said this. I was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense because I haven't been in debt for a couple years. So I was like, oh, I guess this is what Dave Ramsey was talking about, all this manual override, underride stuff. So I was like, okay, what do you need? So they wanted a picture front and back of my social security card, and they wanted my supervisor's name and number, and they wanted my tax return for 2020. So I was like, okay. And they sent me a link to a website to answer security identification kind of questions, and the link didn't work. So they tried to send it to me twice, and I sent them screenshots showing like the link doesn't work. What do you want me to do? And that's when they asked for my social security card and stuff. For my tax return, they said they needed a CPA certified copy of my tax return, and I was like, I don't know what that means. It's from TurboTax. And I was like, I'm deployed. I'll have to figure out what this means, because they were like, we need it as soon as possible, or else I guess they have to re-advertise the apartment. I don't know, because it wasn't listed as available anymore. We went back and forth for a few days, and they were able to confirm my identity, and I didn't have to get a CPA certified copy of my tax return. So that was nice. And my housing allowance now is nearly $1,000 less than what it will be when I move to Colorado Springs. So one of the things you have to qualify for is to make 2.5 times more than the rent. It's crazy. So I got the smallest apartment that they offered, which is plenty of room enough, which has plenty enough room, which is room enough. So I found an apartment, plenty of room, smallest one they had, me and Titan, and with my application, I attached a screenshot with the link of the housing allowance rates for military people. So I was like, here, my housing allowance is gonna go up a lot. Here's a link so you can see it. So long story short, basically the only extra thing I had to provide with this manual underride business was my social security card and my 2020 tax return. Other than that, everything else was the same, what I would normally provide when I was applying for an apartment. And thinking back on it, this was one of the least expensive apartments I was able to even find. One of the other apartment complexes had like the studio apartments, really tiny, but I didn't want me and Titan to be cooped up in like a really tiny place like that. I wanted us to have room to play fetch and stuff. It's a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment. Once I move into it, I'll show y'all around. Yeah, it worked out. Manual underride, able to get an apartment, a good one, a safe one, close to my job. So I'm really excited for that. I'll leave a copy of the checklist I used at the end of this, just in case you're interested on what I prioritized and what I was looking for. Now that I'm moving, my monthly expenses are changing, right? So I'm gonna have to recalculate my emergency fund. The 3 to 6 month emergency fund is supposed to cover your expenses for, between 3 and 6 months. And I'll probably bump it up to $10,000. There's $5,000 in there right now, so I'm gonna bump it up to 10 just to be safe. Alright guys, that's all I have for you in this video. Let me know what you think about my checklist, if you would add or remove any items. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.